It is almost fall, y'all, so you know what that means? Cute fall accessories to spice up your fall look. Hi everyone, my name is Sydney, and today we are going to learn how to make these knitted mock cable fingerless gloves. What you are going to need to know how to do in today's video is how to knit, how to purl. We're going to do something that's called a mock cable, which consists of a slip stitch and also knit two. You'll also need some basic sewing knowledge, and also how to bind off, of course, but I believe that is all that you really need to know how to do for today's tutorial. So let's talk about some things that we are going to need to make these fingerless gloves. So starting off, we need to talk about yarn. So the yarn that I used in today's video is a worsted weighted yarn. A good choice is some of this Premier's Just yarn. It is worsted weight. I did get this from my local Dollar Tree, so a very inexpensive project to do. And one of these cakes, which is 131 yards, would be plenty enough to do both of these gloves. Again, this is a worsted weight yarn. You can use whatever worsted weight yarn that you would like. With that, I am using a 6mm needle. With the mock cables, they do tend to tighten up a little bit, so you do want to go a few sizes in knitting needles. Again, I am using a 6mm needle. You are also going to need a few stitch markers, at least 2 if not 4 stitch markers, for when we go to do the hole for our thumb, because we are going to be working as a knit flat, and then we'll be sewing the two sides together with creating a thumb hole. So you are going to need a few stitch markers to create that thumb hole, and of course a tapestry or darning needle to weave in those ends, and some scissors. So are you guys ready to get started? Because I am. Let's go ahead and cast on a total of 32 stitches, and I will be using the long tail cast on method. To create this bottom cuff here, we are going to do a 1 row repeat for a total of 4 rows. So the repeat unit for those 4 rows is going to be, we're going to start off with knit the first 2, so 1 and 2. Then we are going to purl 2. So that is the repeat unit. Again, we are going to knit 2, so 1 and 2. And we are going to purl 2. So we are creating a 2x2 ribbing, and we're going to go ahead and continue this to the end of our row. Once you have made it to the end, you should have left off with 2 purl stitches. So now you'll go ahead and turn your work, and we're going to repeat that again for another 3 rows. So again, we're going to start off with a knit 2, so 1 and 2, and then purl 2. Knit 2, and then purl 2. Again, you'll go ahead and continue repeating this until the end of this row, and for once you have gotten done with this row, you'll repeat it 2 more times. And again, this is going to create a 2 by 2 ribbing. Once you have gotten those 4 rows completed, you should have a cuff that looks like this, which again is a 2 by 2 ribbing. Now we will begin the body of the glove, which consists of this mock cabling. It is a 6-row repeat, but before we do the 6-row repeat, we do have to create a setup row. So the setup row, we are going to start off by purling 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we are going to knit 1. So that is going to be the repeat unit for the setup row. Again, we are going to purl 3. And then knit 1. Purl 3 again. And knit 1. So go ahead and continue repeating that until you have made it to the end of this row, and then we'll start on our 6-row repeat. Now we are going to begin the 6-row repeat unit. And we're going to do that for a total of 5 times. With that being said, I am going to list the 6-row repeats for you down in the description box. So when you go to repeat them for, again, a total of 5 times, you can have easy access to them and don't have to keep coming back to the tutorial. They'll be down in the description box written out for you. So for row number 1 of the repeat unit, we are going to start off by purling 1. And then we are going to do a mock cable by bringing our working strand of yarn to the back. And we are going to slip 1 purlwise. So we're going to insert our needle from right to left, and we're going to slip that onto our right hand knitting needle. And then we are going to knit the next 2 stitches, and then that stitch that we slipped, so it will be 3 stitches over, so 1, 2, and 3. We're going to take that slip stitch and we're going to pass it over top of these 2 knit stitches. And again, this creates a mock cable, and that is our repeat unit for row number 1 of our 6-row repeat. So again, we are going to purl 1 and do our mock cable by making sure our strand of yarn is on the back side of our work. We're going to slip 1 purlwise, which is inserting our right hand knitting needle from right to left, and slip it onto our right hand knitting needle, and then knit 2. taking that slip stitch and passing it over top of those 2 knit stitches. Again, the repeat unit for row 1 is purl 1, and then do our mock cable, which is slip 1 purlwise, knit 2, and then take that slip stitch and pass it over top of those 2 knit stitches. You'll go ahead and continue repeating this until you have made it to the end of row 1 of our repeat rows. So again, purl 1, and then we are going to do our mock stitch or mock cable by slipping 1 knitwise or purlwise, and then knit 2. Taking that slip stitch and slipping it over top of those 2 knit stitches. Go ahead and continue repeating that until you have made it to the end. So your last stitch should have actually been a mock cable. So again, that was the first row repeat. For row number 2, we are going to start off with a purl 1. Then we are going to yarn over, and making sure when you're yarning over, you're going from front to back of your knitting needle. Then we are going to purl 1, and then knit 1. So that is the repeat unit for row number 2. So again, we are going to purl 1. We're going to yarn over, purl 1 again, and then knit 1. One more time. Go ahead and purl 1, yarn over, and purl 1. Then knit 1. Now when you do the yarn overs, the yarn over should be in between those 2 knit stitches, where that slip stitch that we've passed over those 2 should be in between those 2 stitches. So I'm going to purl 1, which is part of the knit 2 from previous row. My yarn over is going to be in between those knit 2 of the previous row. I'm going to purl 1 and then knit 1. So go ahead and continue repeating that until you have made it to the end of this row. And once you have made it to the end, you should leave off with a knit 1. So again, that was row number 2. For row number 3, go ahead and turn your work. And now we are going to start off by purling 1, and then we are going to knit 3. And that is our repeat unit for row number 3. So we are going to purl 1 and knit 3. Purl 1 and knit 3. Go ahead and continue repeating that until you have made it to the end of this row. For row number 4, you'll go ahead and turn your work, and row number 3 you should have left off with 3 knit stitches. So for row number 4, we're going to start off by purling the first 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. And then you're going to knit 1. So that is the repeat unit for row number 4. Again, we're going to purl 3. And then we are going to knit 1. One more time. Purl 3. And knit 1. So go ahead and continue repeating that until you have made it to the end of this row, and you should have left off with a knit stitch. Now for row number 5, you'll go ahead and turn your work, and we are going to repeat row 1. So row 1, again, we started off with a purl 1, and then we created a mock stitch. So making sure that your working strand of yarn is on the back side of your work, we're going to slip 1 purlwise. We're going to knit the next 2, so 1 and 2. And then we're going to take that slip stitch and we're going to pass it over top of those knit 2s. Again, the repeat unit, purl 1, and then create our mock stitch, which consists of slip 1 purlwise, knit 2, and then take that slip stitch and pass it over top of those knit 2s. One more time, the repeat unit, purl 1, create our mock stitch, which is slip 1 purlwise, knit the next 2 stitches, and then take that slip stitch and pass it over top of those knit 2s. Again, this is for row number 5, which is just a repeat of row number 1. So we're going to go ahead and continue repeating that until you have made it to the end of this row. Row number 5, you should have left off with a mock cable. And now for row number 6, we are going to repeat row number 2. And row number 2, we started off with a purl 1, we yarned over, we purled 1, and then we knitted 1. So that is the repeat unit for row number 6. So again, we will start off with a purl 1. We're going to yarn over, purl 1, and then knit 1. Again, one more time. Purl 1, yarn over, purl 1, and then knit 1. Go ahead and continue repeating that until the end of this row. You'll go ahead and continue those 6 row repeats for a total of 5 sets. Now we have already done 1 set, so you have 4 more sets to do, which will give you in total 35 rows. And that is including the 4 rows down here for the cuff, and then that 1 setup row that we did before working the 6 row repeats. So again, 4 rows of the cuff, 1 row of the setup, and then 30 rows of the mock stitch that we are using, which gives you a total of 5 sets of the 6 row repeat. So once you have gotten all of that done, we're gonna do the exact same thing that we did down here to make the cuff, but we're going to do 3 rows of the 1 row repeat for the cuff, and then our very last row we're going to continue working a pattern and bind off. So you should be on the front side of your work once you have made it to this point. And our repeat unit for the next 3 rows is going to be knit 2, so 1 and 2, and then we're going to purl 2. Again, knit 2 and purl 2. So go ahead and continue repeating that for the remainder of this row, and then 2 more rows, and then I'll come back once we have made it to that 4th row where we're going to continue working pattern and bind off. Once you have gotten those 3 rows completed, you'll see your 2x2 ribbing forming. So now we're going to turn our work, and you should be on the back side now. And we're going to continue working in pattern, but binding off at the same time. So what that looks like is we're going to go ahead and knit these first 2 stitches. And then we're going to take this first stitch that we knitted, and we're going to pass that over top of the second stitch, to where now you only have 1 loop left on your knitting needle. Now the next stitch is going to be a purl. So we're going to purl that stitch, and then that front stitch here, we're going to go ahead and take that stitch, and we're going to pass it over top of the stitch that we just made. So you're always going to have 1 loop left on your knitting needle until you make the next stitch. So again, the next stitch is going to be a purl stitch. So we're going to go ahead and purl that stitch. And then the first stitch that we have on our knitting needle, we're going to take that stitch and we're going to pass it over top of the stitch we just made. Now the next two stitches are going to be knit stitches. So we're going to knit this first stitch, take the stitch that was still left on our knitting needle, and we're going to pass that over top of the stitch we just made. The next stitch is going to be another knit stitch. Let's go ahead and knit that stitch. And then we're going to take that front stitch and pass it over. So we're going to go ahead and continue repeating that, working in pattern but binding off at the same time until we have made it all the way to the end where we no longer have but one stitch left on our knitting needle. So I'll do this with you one more time. So the next two stitches are going to be purl stitches. So I'm going to purl that first one, and then I'm going to take this front stitch and I'm going to pass it over the stitch we just made. Purl the next stitch, and then take that front stitch and pass it over top of the stitch we just made. So go ahead and continue binding off and working in pattern, and then once you've got this completed, then I will meet you for the next step on making our glove. You can go ahead and cut your work, but you want to make sure you leave a long tail, because now we're going to sew the two sides together, and we're also going to create our thumb hole. Now there's two ways that you can create your thumb hole. You can measure wherever you want your glove to sit, the top of it. You can measure, like if I wanted my glove to sit right on my knuckles up here, I'll measure from my knuckle down to my thumb, and then I'm going to place a stitch marker. And then wherever I want my hole to end for my thumb, I'll place another stitch marker. Or you can kind of do what I just did and place the glove actually on top of my hand, and then place stitch markers where I wanted my hole to start and where I want it to end. Now once you have gotten that fully done, you're going to fold your project or your glove inside out, because now we're sewing the two ends together and you want your seam to be on the inside of your glove instead of out. So I'm going to go ahead and sew my two ends here together. Now where you have your thumb hole, you do not want to sew that piece or that section together. You want a hole right there. So once I have made it to my very first stitch marker, I'm going to go ahead and take it off. And again, you do not want to sew the ends together wherever you're creating your thumb hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just zigzag on one side and threading my strand of yarn until I've reached my next stitch marker. And then once I have made it to my next stitch marker, I'm going to go ahead and remove it, and then I'm going to start weaving the ends together again. And then you'll go ahead and weave in the end. You will do the exact same thing to the other glove, weave any loose ends in, and that is it for our fingerless knitted gloves. If you did enjoy today's tutorial, please don't forget to give this video a like, share, comment, or subscribe. If you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always feel free to email me, which will be down in the description box, or you can also ask away in the comments, whichever you prefer. I want to say thank you for tuning in today. I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you in the next video.